What if Australia's most famous mountain isn't actually its highest? Somewhere out there sits a taller peak, carrying melting glaciers just 4 degrees from the equator, and most people have never even heard of it. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why Australia's real roof breaks almost every rule you'd expect a mountain to follow. Australia is the flattest, driest, and oldest continent on Earth, and its mountains are just as strange as everything else about it. Over the next few minutes, we're breaking down 20 facts about the country's highest peaks. The impossible numbers, the geology that refuses to build mountains, a 200-year-old naming mistake, a mountain that might not even count as Australian, and the fragile life clinging to the very top. Let's start with the mountain everyone points to, and how strangely unremarkable its numbers really are. Fact number 1, lowest of the 7 summits. Climbers call it the easiest summit on Earth. At 2,228 meters, Mount Kosciuszko is the shortest of the 7 summits, barely a quarter the height of Everest. No ropes, no oxygen, just a dirt track and a few hours of walking. For a mountain sharing a list with Everest and Denali, that's almost absurd. Fact number 2, a boardwalk to the roof of the country. Most of the world's tallest points demand ice axes and altitude training. Kosciuszko's summit trail is a raised steel walkway. A chairlift from the nearby village carries hikers most of the way up, leaving just a few flat kilometers on foot. The walkway isn't for convenience. It's there to stop thousands of boots from crushing soil that takes centuries to recover. Fact number 3, before lunch, not before dawn. Everest expeditions can take 2 months. Denali climbers spend weeks on the ice. Kosciuszko is different. Most walkers leave the trailhead in the morning and stand on the highest point in the country before lunch. More than 100,000 people reach the summit every year, making it by far the most visited of the 7 summits. Fact number 4, nearly 1,900 kilometers of nothing higher. Here's a strange number. The nearest point on Earth taller than Kosciuszko is nearly 1,900 kilometers away. That's farther than London to Rome. In a country famous for its emptiness, even its highest mountain stands almost completely alone, with no taller rival anywhere across an entire continent. To understand why Kosciuszko is so short, you have to understand what's happening, or not happening, deep beneath Australia's crust. Fact number 5, the flattest continent on Earth. Averaged across the entire landmass, Australia sits just 330 meters above sea level, lower than any other continent. It isn't only Kosciuszko that's modest. Nearly the whole country is a vast, worn-down plain of deserts, plateaus, and dry lake beds. The tallest mountain simply matches the personality of the land around it. Fact number 6, a continent with no volcanoes left. Every other continent on Earth has an active volcano somewhere on it. Australia doesn't. Its last eruption happened around 1,400 years ago, in the south of the country. Without fresh lava building new peaks or fresh faults pushing up rock, nothing has replaced what millions of years of rain and wind have worn away. Fact number 7, stuck in the middle of a plate. The world's great mountain ranges, the Himalayas, the Andes, the Rockies, exist because tectonic plates are crashing into each other at their edges. Australia sits in the dead center of its plate, nowhere near a collision zone. With nothing pushing the crust upward, there was never anything to fight the slow grind of erosion. Fact number 8, the fastest continent that refuses to rise. Here's the twist. Australia is racing north faster than any other continent on the planet, drifting about 7 centimeters a year, roughly the speed your fingernails grow. All that motion and the mountains still won't climb any higher. The plate is sliding, not colliding, so the energy has nowhere to push the land skyward. Fact number 9, the explorer who named the wrong peak. In 1840, Polish explorer Paul Edmund Strzelecki reached a windswept summit in the southeastern mountains and named it Kosciuszko, after the Polish national hero. He believed he'd found the highest point in Australia. He was standing on the wrong mountain. The real high point was the peak right next to him. Fact number 10. Officials quietly swapped the names. Later surveys proved Strzelecki's neighboring peak was slightly taller. Rather than rename the famous Kosciuszko, to something else. The New South Wales Lands Department simply swapped the labels. The mountain Strzelecki actually stood on became Mount Townsend. The taller peak beside it inherited the name and the fame. Fact number 11. The spelling wasn't settled until 1997. For over a century, most maps spelled it Kosciuszko, a simplified, anglicized version. It wasn't until 1997 that the New South Wales Geographical Names Board officially locked in Kosciuszko, matching the original Polish spelling. One of Australia's most famous place names spent 150 years without an agreed spelling. Fact number 12. A second name few visitors know. Long before Strzelecki arrived, the Ngarigo people knew this high country as Kunama Namaji. Today, that traditional name appears alongside the colonial one on official signage, part of a growing push to formally recognize the mountain's dual identity. One European, one thousands of years older. Now for the fact that changes everything you thought you knew about Australia's highest point. Fact number 13, the real roof isn't in Australia. Zoom out to the full continental shelf that includes New Guinea, and Kosciuszko isn't even close. Puncak Jaya, rising 4,884 meters in Indonesian Papua, sits on the very same continental plate as Australia and stands more than twice as tall as Kosciuszko. Fact number 14, a decades-old mountaineering feud. This split the Seven Summits community in two. One list, created by mountaineer Richard Bass, counts Kosciuszko as Australia's representative. Another, from climber Reinhold Messner, insists Puncak Jaya is the true seventh summit, since it's the tallest point on the Australian continental plate. Serious climbers now often complete both, just to avoid the argument. Fact number 15, glaciers 4 degrees from the equator. Puncak Jaya carries something Kosciuszko never could. Real glaciers, just 4 degrees south of the equator. They're among the only tropical glaciers on Earth, and they're vanishing fast, shrinking every single year. Soon, one of the strangest landscapes on the planet may simply melt away completely. Fact number 16, 2 mountains, 2 different sports. Reaching Kosciuszko takes a few hours and a comfortable pair of shoes. Reaching Puncak Jaya means rope bridges, sheer rock headwalls, and technical climbing through remote jungle. 2 mountains, both claimed as Australia's true high point, and almost nothing else in common. Whichever peak you count as the true summit, the mountains left standing on Australian soil are home to something even stranger than geology. Fact number 17, proof Australia once had real ice. Around the summit, the land curves into smooth, bowl-shaped hollows called cirques, carved out during the last ice age, more than 20,000 years ago. This is the only place on mainland Australia where you can still see the fingerprints of real glaciers. Brief evidence that the driest continent once wore a cap of ice. Fact number 18, the marsupial that wasn't supposed to exist. Scientists believed the mountain pygmy possum was extinct, known only from fossils, until one turned up alive at a ski lodge in 1966. It's one of the only marsupials on Earth to properly hibernate, sleeping under the snow for up to 7 months, surviving largely on a single migrating insect. Fact number 19, millions of moths, one ancient feast. Every spring, billions of bogong moths migrate into these mountains, packing themselves into cool rock crevices by the thousands. For the Ngarigo people, that migration meant a seasonal feast, drawing groups from across the region for ceremonies that continued for thousands of years before Europeans ever saw these peaks. Fact number 20, 25,000 wild horses at the summit. By 2019, an estimated 25,000 Brumbies, wild horses descended from escaped colonial stock, roamed these fragile alpine slopes, trampling the same rare bogs and grasslands the possums depend on. Park managers now aim to cut that number down to just 3,000 by 2027. So which is the real Australia? The gentle boardwalk up to Kosciuszko, or Puncak Jaya's vanishing tropical ice? I genuinely love to know. Drop your answer in the comments and tell me, had you ever heard of Australia's other highest mountain before today?